Hello everyone, welcome to another EV Ramblings video. Today I'm going to update you on what I purchased a few months ago. I finally did it. I went out and bought a 2017 Chevrolet Bolt. As you know, in my past several videos I've been talking about what EV would I buy next. If you haven't actually been following, I did own a 2011 Chevrolet Volt and a 2012 Nissan Leaf. We ended up selling the Nissan Leaf in my family just to go down to one car, and we had the Volt for a while. And I was trying to figure out what EV do I buy next. I was thinking about the Kona, the Soul, obviously the Bolt, and looking at what things that were coming for 2021 because I knew there'd be a big churn or a lot of new models. But though I actually kind of bit the bullet 2 months ago and just went for this. This is a used Premier Edition. Basically it had everything that I wanted and the price had dropped enough, and it happened before this plague hit, which is kind of going on right now. I was hoping to go do a long drive before I recorded this video, but that's just not going to happen with this with the COVID-19 crisis right now. So I figured now is just a good time to give an update. I'm going to tell you why I bought it and what I think after owning it for 2 months. But first off, let's before I go for a drive and I do this discussion, let's talk about some things that I've already noticed after owning it for a few months. And some of the reasons I bought the Bolt was that it had really good aftermarket support already. As you'll notice, I do have some roof racks installed. The car does come with roof rails, and that was something that I absolutely needed on a car. My past couple of vehicles, I've had to use those clamps that go in between like your window jamb, and I just don't really like those. I would take them off and on. Now these crossbars are actually kind of custom made. If you Google search Cadillac XT5 Chevrolet Bolt, you'll find out how to put these Cadillac racks on the Bolt, and I think they look absolutely awesome. I've already used them to move a couple bikes. Yeah, so roof racks, that was a big selling point. Now, also on the back, there's a trailer hitch. Now, you can't quite see it from there, but I went with a draw-tight hitch. It was unbelievably cheap, so easy to install. I did it in, I don't know, about 40 minutes on the ground without jacking the back up. Just had to cut a little piece, 4 bolts, and you're done. And it's been awesome. I've also had a bike rack on there. I've towed my utility trailer. Now, if you are though thinking like, hey, that's awesome, you have a trailer hitch and you want to tow a utility trailer, one thing that I have discovered is with my Chevrolet Volt, I towed a trailer all the time. And just taking things to like your local municipality to drop off like garden waste. But that one I had a plug and play kit for the electrical on my utility trailer. No kit exists for the Bolt, and wiring it, I did it myself, was a nightmare. It is awful. So just take that in mind. Like, it is possible to do, but you might have to pay somebody quite a bit of money to get that wiring in place, or spend several of your own hours in agony to make it fit. So one of the other reasons that I actually ended up with the Bolt, my last video that I uploaded was a test drive of the Bolt. 2019 brand new one, just revisiting it because I drove one years before when they first came out, and it kind of just shocked me though, like how good the car was, and I fell in love with the color. And this one happens to be the exact same color as the car I drove. It's just I love a little bit of a blue tint, but I do also like the styling of the car. Recently I actually saw some automotive magazine refer to it as a hot hatch, which I never thought of it that way, but it kind of is. Like, it's not a crossover utility vehicle. It is, like, the acceleration and driving is awesome, so that kind of puts it in the hot category. And it does, like, it's a fun, aggressive looking car. Now, I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but after owning it for a couple months now, if anything, I am more and more liking how it looks. All right, let's get this drive going. So, I've already done driving reactions to this, so this isn't going to really be that. First thing you're going to see here, oops, let's turn that music off. This 360 camera is amazing. It's absolutely incredible. The way it's implemented, how quickly it comes up, the clarity, like, sure, it's a little bit fuzzy, but you can see everything. You know exactly where the car is. I've never had that, and in my Volt, I always relied on the proximity sensors because the Volt didn't have the best visibility, and I thought those were good. The 360 is amazing. I can't see owning a car without it from this point forward, and living with it now, like, yeah, it's awesome. So the other thing, I'm driving down quite a steep hill right now, and I have the car in L mode, and it's the regeneration. I've said with the Hyundais that I drove that I really like being able to just select like 0 through 4 for my regenerative rate, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I really enjoy having the drive in L, just easy to flip through. And L is like, it's 1 foot driving. Like, I'm not gonna hit the brakes. Coming up to the stop sign, just let go of the pedal, and it stops. So it's so good, and it becomes so natural that I just don't even think about it anymore. And the paddle on the back side, the left side here to engage extra regen, is just kind of icing on top of the cake. I don't use it that often, but when I do use it, it's nice to have. I like the position of everything too. One thing that, okay, well, let's get this out of the way. The 2011 Volt that I had was clearly a more premium car. It's just everything about how they constructed it. It was just completely different design philosophy, but all the surfaces, wherever you put like a water bottle, had like a rubber bottom to it. Any flat surface had a rubber bottom to get rid of like any sound. This is all just hard plastic for like those kinds of surfaces. There's also like, it doesn't have umbrella holders in the doors. In the Volt, for the Volt did. Like just little things like that, which made it feel more of a premium vehicle. So that's one thing that I miss for the Volt. But in terms of comfort, and I took the Volt on like 5,000 kilometer trip. I usually don't drive very far, but the Volt was ultra comfortable. I haven't obviously attempted anything like this in this car, but I've been in this seat for a good few hours, and I really enjoyed the ergonomics. One thing that I had forgotten or didn't know existed is this little center piece here. It slides out to give you even a longer rest on your arm, which is super nice. Note, you can't open it when it's out, but it's just everything in here, from what I've experienced over the past couple months, is not what I expected. When I had always test driven it those 2 times, like there was nothing really to do alarm, but there's so many things on the internet saying that this car is not comfortable. It is. Of course, like I'm a small frame guy. I'm 5'10", 150 pounds, so I'm a lightweight. But it's, I don't know, I think the car is ergonomically, everything is set up really nice. Now, what else? A few things that I do miss from the Volt is that it had a built-in garage door opener. It was up here near the OnStar, and on the Leaf, he had it built in our 2012 in the rearview mirror. I do have my portable one up here, which works just fine, but I do miss that. But that's just a stupid accessory. The infotainment system is far better on this car compared to my 2011 Volt. It just feels so much more modern. Having Android Auto is incredible. Just hooking up USB and have it on your screen here, it's great. And it's just the additional insight that this gives me compared to what my other car had is it's significant, and it's nice having those details. Now, I know in the Volt, as the years progress, they improved the infotainment system quite a bit. But anyways, I appreciate it. I couldn't go back to the old one. Other things that I've noticed, both have the Bose stereo. I had the 2011 Volt only came in like the top trim edition. This is the Premier Edition Bolt, and the Bose stereo in this car it's better. It's significantly better. They have similar subwoofers. They're both kind of located in the bottom of the trunk, from the first gen Volt to this Bolt. But the bass is punchier, the highs are clearer and louder. It's just a better experience, and I wasn't quite expecting that, which is another surprise. The rearview mirror, I never engage this little screen. I don't see a point to it still. I don't like it. So why? Okay, so those are some of the first things I've noticed owning the car. Why did I buy it? I have already kind of talked about it when I was standing outside of it. But some additional things is, I'm not a General Motors person. The only other GM car I've owned was the Volt, but it did get me some loyalty. That car was incredible, trouble-free, And so I naturally was kind of inclined to think, hey, like a Bolt might be a better option for me, just because I like how that car felt, and a lot of those same things do carry over to this car, like also having a dealership support network, which it's just nice to have them there, and a lot of the functions of how some of the dials and accessories work. Now let's I also picked this car because for the price. I could have, well, I'm financially in a position where I could have bought new, but it just didn't make sense to put that much money out. And the used price on these, like, sure, the Bolt hasn't sold nearly as well as a lot of people hoped it would, but there still is a lot of end-lease stuff coming on right now. And this car is from California, and I picked it up from a Mazda dealership in Richmond, British Columbia. It was on their lot for a while. They kept on dropping the price, dropping, and they hit below the mark that I was kind of saying, if I see a Bolt with what I want in that price range, I'm going to buy. And so I did. And there was nothing else on the market that has the range that this has for the price point. This is by far the best entry point that I could get into. And like, I had a Leaf, and I enjoyed everything that the 2012 Leaf SL that me and my wife owned gave to us. Like, it was a great car. It was, but it could not be a single car for us. It just didn't have the range. And now that I've owned this car for a few months, compare it to the Leaf, like, there's absolutely no way I would ever buy a Leaf over a Bolt. Like, maybe a second generation with the extra battery pack, like with a 64 kilowatt, but I doubt it. I think I would stick with the Bolt. I just like how it functions better. It's equally as quiet, it's equally as comfortable for me. The performance is amazing, acceleration. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to other things that I've come to appreciate in my Bolt. Now, this is also equipped with a safety package, so it has lane assist or lane keep. It also has automatic braking. I haven't had it automatic brake for me, but I do have the system on. And one thing that I hadn't really realized was the heads-up display. So up on the dash here, you might not be able to see it, there's a little hole, and there's bright LED red lights there. So if it notices that it thinks you might get into an accident, it will start beeping really hard at you to turn your sound off, and it will flash on your screen, and the flashing just immediately catches your attention. And I have had that happen a few times. Just when I was coming to record this video, I was on a narrow road, and there's cars parked on my right, and I went into the left lane, and a truck was coming, and he wasn't really slowing, and sure enough, it alerted me saying, hey, like, if you continue on this trajectory, you're gonna hit that person. So I thought that was awesome. I've also been surprised by how much monitoring the car is doing to the outside. So if there's a pedestrian or cyclist coming that's near the road, a little picture of a person walking shows up down here. I'm not sure what that means. Like, obviously I haven't like come close to hitting anybody. I'm not sure if that would engage the auto braking or not, but it really surprised me. I didn't think this car would be that aware of the things going on around it. So credit to GM, the car is a lot smarter than I thought. Energy efficiency. So I bought this in January of 2020, and when I bought it, there was some snow and slush on the ground in Vancouver area. So it was cold, and the first thing that surprised me was, like, I know I've been with electric cars for years now, and I know that cold weather equals reduced range. I just was kind of surprised by how much it reduced it. And it was still fine. Like, this car, it's advertised at 383 kilometers factory new from a full charge on average. But in like freezing weather with the heat on, set to about 22 degrees Celsius, and set to auto, like just let it do its thing, I probably would get about 260. So that's a significant drop. And I knew that this car didn't have the heat pump system. I've told people, like, if you're buying a Leaf, don't buy the S trim, buy the SV or the SL. to make sure that you get that heat pump, because it's such a huge deal. Now, on the Leaf though, especially in the first generation, that's mostly true because the battery is so small. Whereas this car though, you have 60 kilowatt hour battery, like usable, 60 kilowatt of usable range. So even though I did lose like a lot of distance, it still didn't matter, because for my regular daily stuff, like 250 kilometers is still like easily a week of driving without charging or more. So it's not really an issue, but it's just a surprising thing, and something that I'm looking forward to seeing how my range increases as the season changes. And we're already getting to the warmer temperature, and my range is just not changing as I drive, as it tries to figure that out. Utility of the car. I already talked about utility of this car. I already talked about the roof racks, like how I think it's awesome that they have it, and I was able to get those Cadillac racks, that the hack to get them fit on the car. It looks so original equipment. I think it's awesome. I have the trailer hitch, which was easy to install, so much easier than the Volt was to install. But just the inside of the car. Now, regarding storage, I always argued that the space of the Volt, like the way that it was longer, wider, rather than taller, was easier, was more usable in more scenarios. This cargo space is taller rather than longer, but I've had to put some serious stuff in this car. Well, like my wife did. Like, she runs her own business, graphic design, and she had this huge print, boxes that she had to pick up. And it was just incredible that she was able to fit it all in this car, like easily, with like space to spare. And having this back behind me here, not having the hump like the Volt had, allows me to put so much more stuff just between the seats that I never had. So I think the space and the way they've designed this car is great. It really fits what I want to use it for, how I use it. And the car is just, it has lots of room for passengers. So I've never been a big car person, but this car does feel like a big car. Even though it's not as wide as the Volt, it doesn't matter. I can easily just, after mountain biking or whatever, I can sit in the back and, you know, get cleaned up, or just have all my gear and tons of space, and just really easy to get to things. Also, driving experience, like the car is still a riot to drive after owning a couple months. Like, I had a blast driving it. The electric motor in this car is significantly bigger than the Volt, and it's like almost double the size of the original Leaf. So power delivery is huge, but it's so fun to drive. And I had a 1990 Mazda Miata, which I had turbocharged up to 263 wheel horsepower. That was on a Dynamics dyno. And that thing was just, well, it was a nightmare to keep it going, and it ate fuel like you wouldn't believe, but it was fun. And I haven't had that kind of experience since this car. It's just, I could be cruising on the highway, and I could just punch it, and it just immediately just like accelerates hard. And I had missed that with the turbo on my Miata. Like, whatever, I can live without it, it doesn't really matter. But this car gives me that same experience. It's also, the suspension is, like, it's firm, but not, you don't even notice it. And it handles really well on the corners. I figured that this car would handle a little bit worse than the Volt, because the Volt is lower. And even though they both have low center of gravity weight, I figured this one being sitting up a little higher, being a little more top heavy, I would notice it, but I don't. If anything, I think this is better in like the turns and corners and handling. And the fact that it is, you have that small front end, you can't really see it. Most new cars you can't, but it's so easy to navigate and get around. Turning radius has been great. Yeah. Heated steering wheel, heated seats all work awesome. They get the Volt, the seats got too hot, at least on the 2011. Like, if you had them on maximum, it was like, is this gonna burn me? Whereas this, it doesn't get that hot, which is nice. It still has the 3 levels like my 2011 Volt did, but it's balanced way better. the Noisemaker. It's something I don't think I ever really noticed that much when I test drove the cars before, but the car has a noisemaker, like this white noise. The speaker is somewhere up front there, I think. And if you're just parked and the car is in drive, it makes that sound. And when I bought it, what if you hear it? Like, as soon as you buy a car, like, it's a large expenditure of money, for sure. And you're trying to save, okay, is everything totally fine with this car? And I had to go from Vancouver to Vancouver, and I still felt a little bit rushed to buy it. And it bothered me, that sound. Like, I was like, is that what it's supposed to be doing? Is it not? But now, after having the car for 2 months, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm glad it's there. It's nice knowing that the car doesn't make a sound. It's not absolutely silent like my Volt was. And I do like that as long as the car is in a drive mode, it's making that noise. There are ways to disable it. You just need to do some internet sleuthing to find out how. I would suggest you won't. It's for pedestrian safety, so that they know that your car is ready to drive and could run them over at any point in time. So, yeah, so that's one thing that surprised me when I bought it. I was like, am I going to get used to this? And I did. Now, it's been 2 months, and news about all the new electric vehicles coming out is still, like, it's always progressing, and there's always new stuff coming. I don't have any regrets on buying this Bolt. Even though they've, like, they mentioned the new couple Bolts that are coming out, the new styling it's going to have, and a newer interior. I like the styling of this car. I like the interior. I like everything that it drives. Absolutely no regrets that I bought this car, and I plan on having this car for many years. I can't see buying another vehicle for a long time. And, that sucks for maybe some of you viewers wanting me to own different vehicles, but for me, it financially makes sense, and I do really love this car. And the more I drive it, the more I own it, the more I really like it. And talking about range, so just this whole time I've been driving, I've driven several kilometers now, it's still showing 214 kilometers. That's, I think, what it showed when I first started this, just because it's getting used to the warmer temperature now, and the battery is really coming to life. Well, I'm almost home, and I've done a lot more talking than I thought it would, so I hope that you found this so informational. There's the Bolt, it isn't that popular of a vehicle, and a lot of the videos on YouTube, they don't get a lot of hits, so I'm not expecting this to be a particularly popular video that I upload, and that's a shame, because the more that I own this car, the more I realize that how much I really like it. I would absolutely buy this car again. Even if there was a Kona right now that was the same price, I would buy the Bolt. And some of that is like the available utility, having the really good roof racks, having the trailer hitch available. I think the Kona might have that as well, but it's quite established. There's a lot of options for the Bolt. And I just really like the way it drives. It's so smooth, especially like with the regen, and the paddles and the ergonomics. I don't know. It's a great car, and I really think you should drive it. Go and test drive one, and if you can, take it for extended drive. So, if you have any questions that you want to know about the Bolt, now that everyone should know that I have this car now, or if you want me to try anything, let me know. Put a comment, and I'll try to respond to you. I'll answer your questions, or maybe you can give me some video ideas. I'm here to help people. That's why I make these videos, try to get them engaged in the electric vehicle market and give them a fair chance. And the Bolt is definitely one of the best EVs in the market, I think. So thanks for watching. See you soon.